Hello, I'm Peter Costanza with ROI Consulting Group and a board member of the IT community of IFMA. We welcome you to day 3 of FM Tech Week 2026, presented by Schneider Electric. This session is brought to you by Deskpilot. I'm going to do my best to mispronounce their names, so I apologize in advance because we just went through this. But it's my pleasure to introduce Josip Bajcer and Romina as they take us through the end of desk booking.
Thanks a lot.
Smarter way to manage flexible workspaces. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much. Pronunciation was perfect. I'll just quickly go ahead and show my screen. So, welcome everyone. Like Peter just said, my name is Romina. I'm joined by my colleague Josip, and we're from a company called Deskpilot. We're based in Vienna. And by the way, Vienna does not have a cable car, as you can see in the image here. Turns out AI is really bad at creating a line drawing of a Viennese skyline. But doesn't matter, we'll go into something that AI is really good at, and that is managing a lot of individual preferences in a hybrid workplace. So you're all pros joining today. I don't really have to talk a lot about how work has changed in the past years. We know that the office needs an adaptation and more flexibility, and this is why we founded Deskpilot in the first place. Because back then, a lot of companies decided, and maybe you're among these companies, that said, well, let's just work hybrid. Because there were a lot of ideas behind it, and one of them was it's going to reduce office space, so it's going to save us some costs. Next was it's going to be easy managing because there's booking tools, people can just reserve their desks, and it's going to manage demand. And all in all, together, it will improve collaboration. Well, I'm going to jump ahead and say some of these things never took place. There's a couple of issues with the hybrid workplace, and we always sum it up in these 3 categories. One is inefficient teams. So we have a lot of disturbance, so people coming in, sitting next to someone who's talking on the phone all the time. You probably know all these situations. And generally a lack of collaboration, because as soon as there's not everybody around in the workplace all the time, you're going to have difficulties finding each other and maybe bring your team together. The second one is inefficient spaces. So the week goes from over to underutilization from Monday to Wednesday and to Friday. And it's really, really difficult to save on costs and manage a space efficiently when you can't really plan for the same amount of people showing up all the time. And the third thing is insufficient data. So maybe it's not directly insufficient because we have a lot of data nowadays. We collect it via softwares and sensors. So we have really high accuracy, but at the same time, we don't know how to interpret it. Like, how do we use the data to actually make people collaborate better? So, and the real issue behind it is first come, first served, all right? So I'm going to jump ahead and say, first come, first served is just a really, really bad system to manage a modern workplace. If you take anything home from your session today, let it be this sentence: it is really the enemy of a well-managed and cost-efficient and fair work environment. It's, at very least, it's very unfair. So that's what we do. We make it fair by taking care of the booking for people. So you don't really have to reserve your own desk. It's going to be effortless because you're just going to tell us when you want to attend in the office, and Deskpilot will manage to book you the perfect desk amongst your peers. It's really objective and fair because it's a software booking and not a person. You know, it doesn't hold grudges. It doesn't treat you mean just because you wrote a mean comment. And it's really the macro coordination that unleashes the power of the hybrid workplace. And it also manages your personal preferences. So no matter what you need in a workplace, it's going to know it and it's going to adjust accordingly. So how do we do this? Scientifically speaking, we use a combination of floor plan analysis and network science to find the right spot for everyone. Or you can just say it simply, we know where and with whom you want to sit to have an amazing day at work. It's really that simple. It's all that we need in a workplace. It's just to sit in the right spot and have the peers around us as we go through a workday. I think there's a little poll coming up now, and it's something that we've been facing a lot while we presented Deskpilot all over different companies. Because whenever we have a customer coming in and we do the first presentation to the employees, there's always someone raising their hand and going, but wouldn't it be just better if I booked the desk myself? So maybe you take the time and just answer this question for us, because I would be really interested if for the first time when you hear someone else is going to manage where you sit and how you book your desk and where, if that is something that seems challenging to you, or it's something that makes you curious, something that makes you skeptical, or if you just go, no, I definitely want to manage my own workday. I'm gonna wait a bit longer to wait for the polls coming in. And oh, it's actually a lot of people really excited about getting their desk booked by us. Thanks a lot. But there's also some skepticals. Don't worry. I will go into that for a second. Of course, you can manage your own personal preferences very well by yourself. But the thing is, it's not going to be effortless. We actually counted, and it takes a lot of time for people to book their own desks. Nonetheless, if they want to coordinate, so if you have a whole team and you have to call them up or text them, schedule when you're going to be there, which desks you actually want to book, where you're going to be sitting, and what you're going to be working on. So it takes a lot of time that you can use much better working on your project. It's not going to be objective because obviously you will take care of yourself and your own team first. And there's just a lack of macro coordination, and we'll go into that, why that's actually an issue. This is just a little bit of background, how we actually do it. So we have to find out who needs what, and the first step is always the office analysis. So we have a script running over the office floor plan. It figures out where are the desks, what are the neighborhoods like, is there a lot of privacy visually, acoustically, are you seen or can you see a lot of people from your spot, and what points of interest are close by. And then we go into the real fun part, which is the team survey. So everybody does a quick survey, just answering us when you want to come into the office, usually. What is your work style? What is your communication preferences and needs? And your team network. So who do you want to collaborate with? And this is really, really interesting, because what we get out of it is a lot of data and a lot of insights, where really when we show it to HR and IFMA, everybody goes like, wow, I've never seen my team like this before. And everybody, when we try to explain, like, there's a team that that collaborates really densely, and then there's some looser parts. Someone always goes and says, well, that's interesting. How are those two teams not much tighter? And this is something we can react on also with macro coordination. So this goes into the part with inefficient teams. We just make teams more efficient because we even out the coordination failure that happens to be a bad office day, right? So everybody knows the situation where you come into the office, you're excited to have a productive day, and there's just someone sitting down next to you who's on the phone all the time, right? So I'm not saying this is a design flaw. Bad office days are a coordination failure because these two people are not doing anything wrong. So this is actually productive behavior, being on the phone and focusing on something. You just have to match it with the right environment. So these two people should not be sitting close to each other. The second part is inefficient spaces. So everybody knows this kind of curve that we go through the whole week, right? So Tuesday, Wednesday are usually the busiest days, maybe even Thursday, a lot of people come in. Monday, a little bit less, and Friday, well, it's almost always empty, right? So this is what we usually focus on, like the empty Fridays, because this is something that we see. Something that we don't see is the actual demand. So if you only count bookings, so how much desks are booked for Tuesday and Wednesday, you're not going to see the actual demand. You're not going to see the people who want to come in and they don't get a space. And this is bad for collaboration because it disconnects the employees from their workspace. It establishes home office as an actual alternative. So if I can't come in, right, I'm going to make different plans. So you always have to take care of the people who actually want to demand an office space. So what we did was we put up a couple of smart functions that just makes it way easier to come in on days that are overbooked, right? You're not going to say like, oh, well, I have 100 desks, and if 120 people are going to come in, that's not going to work, right? But there's always people who maybe have booked a desk before and don't really need them. So we actually introduced that people can donate their desks to others on the waiting list. So if you're benched, you're probably lucky, and someone comes up to you and says, you can have my seat because I don't really need it tomorrow. And also, if you cancel your plans and you don't come in on Tuesday, you will automatically be moved up if you're on that waiting list. So we just make it really, really easy to come in on days that are really busy. This is something that I want to go into. It's our admin cockpit. It's where you can see data of one of our customers. And if you focus, maybe not on the first two parts where you can see that people are actually really happy with our desk assignments, but maybe focus on the last part where you see the utilization of the office. So focus on Thursday, that is 105% office demand. So a lot of more people want to come in than actually there's space. Those are the first 3 months we tried that with that customer. And this is what happens in the second half of the first half year. So actually demand for Thursday goes back and for Friday goes up. So how does that even work? Utilization becomes more balanced if people know they don't have to book ahead. Because with normal booking tools, you have an advantage if you go and book for the whole month. Because if you're the first one who books, you're going to have the nicest desks in the best area with the nicest view and so on. With Deskpilot, you never have that. You're always going to get the right spot for you, so you don't have to actually kick other people out. So this is what balances utilization. You just go back to, I just demand a spot when I actually need it. And let's also look at the Friday, because that's also a matter of good coordination, how much you can save in your building. Because with first come, first served, everybody's going to distribute over the whole area. With coordination, that's a little bit top down, you're going to have a lot of saving potential on heating, cooling, ventilation, and cleaning. So if you can imagine, all of these spaces are free, and people are still happily working because well coordinated. In the other parts, you can imagine that it's much easier to just run down on the costs here. And I'll go on to the third part. Actually, now my colleague Josip is taking over, and he's going to tell you something about insufficient data.
Thank you, Romina. Yeah, so as Romina explained, we have a quite scientific take on how we coordinate things. It's a coordination problem, and as long as we have enough data to match demand and requirements and individual preferences of the people, but also of the team, we can actually work with that. The way we improve over time is through feedback. So users get assigned a desk. So maybe you get a desk and you're actually not that happy with what Deskpilot booked for you. You can just give us a bad review for that day, for that specific spot, in that specific environment. Since we know all the parameters of that day, we can make sure that you get a better desk tomorrow or get a similar desk that same day. So we use feedback based on, we work with feedback from the actual users. So, and with some of these data types, we can do quite a bit of different things. So we can make sure to have clustering of teams and departments. So, for example, the whole department needs to sit together. This is one of the, for example, here the red areas, but the whole department is then split up into teams, and the individual teams are sitting at a desk where they're even closer together. So we can make sure to map the entire structure, the organizational diagram onto the floor plan, and make sure that people are actually sitting within their certain groups. And at the same time, look at technical demands. For example, I need a dual screen, I need a specific keyboard, I need whatever wheelchair accessible desk. All of these things are hard-coded into the floor plan. Me as a facility management officer, I can go into the data and change that, change different demands, maybe even block some areas. So this is kind of the second thing. So mapping, I can identify different locations, log them if they're being serviced, if I'm changing, if the monitor is broken and it's going to take 2 days until it's fixed or something like that. I can just go in and actually work with the feedback and actually also have an impact on how people utilize it. I don't have to put up a sign. It's just not gonna be a sign through Deskpilot, so nobody's gonna sit there. And we can do that for whole areas or individual desks. And the last one is that we can also have certain settings depending on, for example, the strategic orientation of the company. So we can prioritize individual preferences. So people are gonna sit mostly in regards to their favorite desk, as Romina said, their favorite view or something, or with their favorite person. But we can also type in, for example, the parameters on team structure and so on, so we can make sure that they actually sit with the right team, and then prioritize also certain groups of others, for example, manage data privacy. The HR team needs to sit in an area that is restricted because they're having sensitive data, so we can also take care of all of these things. Yeah, if you go to the next slide. Yeah, so because we collect a lot of data, and they're all stored on our database, it's really tricky to handle that classical big data problem. So what we do is we map it in some cases back onto the floor plan. So, for example, this is a sentiment analysis of all the written feedback, where people tell us something about, for example, in this case, the climate control. So people complained in the red areas that it is too cold, too drafty, or whatever. And then we can map it onto the entire floor, create this nice heat map, and see how often this issue came up. And then we can see that, for example, if there's only one person complaining about this, then it's probably going to be a personal issue. And then we can fix it by either moving the person to a different location or approaching the person and talking about the issue. If you see a clustering of multiple seats having the same issue, it might be an actual issue. So in one of our cases, we actually found out, for example, that the windowsill was broken because it was really drafty and noisy in that specific area. When people sit at this desk every day, they don't even notice it, since we're creatures of habit. Even if it's a desk sharing environment, we tend to do that. So the person that was sitting there didn't even notice, but once we started rotating, we can figure things like that out. And we can use this to, of course, do ticketing. So people sit when they move around, they notice, of course, different things, because from desk to desk, you notice these little differences. For example, if the cable is wobbly, if the monitor is not, the resolution is not right, or if the desk is wobbly, if it's drafty, as I said just now, if something is broken, people notice it. They also have an interest in giving us that feedback, because they will then either get the desk again, or they will get a different one because they don't want to sit with a wobbly chair. So we collect a lot of data, we analyze them locally, so we don't use kind of AI analysis that gets feedback, that gets fed back into the machine. So we do that locally. We analyze for certain keywords, for example, monitor or noise or certain IT keywords. And then we provide kind of this kind of heat map and the comments with certain metadata, so we know where it was, the person who said that comment, the day, who was sitting around, and all of these kind of things, and we give it to the person in charge of IT, HR, facility management, and so on. Okay, let's look at the clock. We have 10 more minutes. I would go in and show you a little bit of the interface and do a little live demo. But maybe we can do a little Q&A if there are any questions that are already burning. Give it a shot, but I'm going to share my screen in a second.
Yeah, just jumping back. I don't see any questions in the chat. Oh, we do have one question. What does the implementation process look like for automatic desk booking?
I didn't get that acoustically.
What does the implementation process look like for automatic desk booking?
Sure. So we do have a little bit of an implementation process. We need to know, we need to get the floor plan, but that is usually the case with all desk booking solutions. So we need something like this. Here we go. This is the floor plan of one generic office, and you have this interface. We can just load in your PDFs, your DWGs, or whatnot. And then we go through a little process of analyzing, which means we go through and analyze, for example, the lighting. So I can show you here. Let's say sunshine. So this is, since we know where north is and we know where the windows are based on the plan, we know the location of the office, we can analyze where we have the most sunlight coming in. So all of these parameters are neither good or bad. It's just personal preference, but we know that these, for example, desks down here, they will get a lot of sun, a little bit over here, but that is the north side, so north is somewhere over there. These won't have any glare. So if a person likes is distracted by glare on their screens, they'll probably prefer a desk on this location. If people read on paper a lot, for example, legal, then they might like to sit and read with direct sunlight. So they would prefer a desk closer to that. So you can imagine that we have, like, as you can see here, lots of parameters, distance to the restrooms, distance to whatever, for the nearest phone booth. We have also, just the right ones or the left ones, or the window or aisle kind of parameters. These are rather simple, but yeah, we have different parameters when it comes to quality of desk. So based on these, we can set up the different preferences for different people. And so people don't get desk 24B because they liked it. They get a desk that has that same amount of sunshine, for example, direct sunlight. So these two desks are alike in that domain. So on that parameter. So this is how this works on a technical when it comes to that. So we need to do that. And then on the other hand, we need to do this survey. So we actually also have a tool in here. We can edit, create surveys, and we can create results, executive summaries based on that. So, and then we do create kind of an organizational structure. So these are our departments. We know how many people they are. These are just mock-up data, but depending on the organizational structure, either they already have this, or we can do it as part of the survey where people can say, I'm from this department, I work with these people from this other department. And yeah, I can set this up as a management person. For example, I can say sales and marketing, they need to sit close together because they collaborate, obviously. And I want to increase the informal communication. So if they're sitting close by to each other, they might bump into each other during a coffee break, and this will increase my engagement and exchange, and also well-being, and reduce loneliness, and like plenty of positive aspects, all based on like this kind of water cooler effect that is very well documented. So, but this is basically it. So we have the floor plans, we have the organizational structure, we do this little survey, and then we can start. And then this looks a bit like this. So we can do at the beginning, we can also say, oh, okay, so this department needs to sit here, and these guys need to sit here. We can also use this in the planning phase. So we work with a lot of architects in the early design phase, and then we see, can we fit all of these people in, for example, only the right corner here, so I can move the entire departments. I can bench them, as Romina said, and then see, okay, do we have, what's the ratio? So this is 0.61. I want to have 0.7 at least, so I have to move them back in. And this is kind of our planning interface. And I can just say, click auto allocate, and it just gives me an example of what it would be, what it would look like. But I can do that once in order to make sure I have kind of a good start for my department, because I know these guys like to sit here on the north side, and I want them to be in a home base, for example, something like that. And then we have analytics. As I said, we have like tons of heat maps, the desks that the people like, frequency maps, how often they come in, how often which desk is used versus other desks, so we can see if there are areas that are problematic. Okay, so these turn red, so at least 14 times they were mentioned to be a bad neighborhood, so probably we need to check in, and then we can click on it and see what are the comments, why do people don't like it, and so on. So it's really something that you can work on as a facility manager. Here's the sentiment analysis, so I can type in monitor, and then it will just calculate every mention of, for example, this was cold, so this is monitor, for example. I can see if there's an area where people more often complain about the monitors, so I can go in and see, okay, it's because they're two different types of screens. I can fix that. We also do a lot of kind of change to desk sharing. So, in Europe, especially in Austria, it's quite conservative country. So we have a lot of companies that are first time moving into desk sharing, and everybody's very anxious and they don't want to do it. So we also have, the second poll is coming up. Yeah, we can do sentiment analysis based on where people are in the change curve, if they're still in the valley of sadness, or if they're already past that, and then we can address, for example, if they're part of a certain group, we can address the department, because we have all the data, we can filter for the department. Total occupancy, we can see mobility, who's moving where, we can do occupancy, of course, we can see how much it changed, mobility, which department moves, is more likely to move, see the quality of feedback, change curve, all of these things. So basically we're building a little bit of a kind of a digital twin light, but specifically for the work environment where we have HR and facility management data combined. Second poll is up. Essentially it's the same question, just if you're convinced now or not. Let's see the results maybe. Oh yeah. A little bit
looks better than before. So yeah, we hope that you enjoyed our talk, that we got a little bit into what the advantages of macro coordination in hybrid workplaces is, and don't forget, first come, first served is not a good system to run your office today. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you guys so much for your presentation. There are a list of questions, but we're kind of held up on time. We will get back to the people ask the questions individually. Our next session for FM Tech Week is today at 2 p.m. Eastern with Akita Box. Thank you everyone for attending, and have a great day.